The hum of the server room was Kevin's lullaby, a low, constant thrumming that vibrated through the soles of his worn-out sneakers. For 6 months, this sterile, windowless box had been his sanctuary, his laboratory, his quiet dominion within the sprawling glass and steel palace of Viridian Dynamics. He was Kevin, the software intern, a ghost in the machine room, meticulously tending to the digital heartbeat of a company that, he'd been promised, was about to make him a permanent fixture. The promise was etched in the air, whispered in the break room coffee machine's hiss, and confirmed in a handshake with Victor, his manager. A handshake that felt less like a welcome and more like a slightly damp, dismissive pat. Victor. Victor. He was a man sculpted from corporate jargon and ambition, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes and a vocabulary that could make a thesaurus blush with shame. He wore his condescension like a bespoke suit, each insult tailored with the precision of a Savile Row tailor. He was the kind of manager who'd praise your work with a sigh, as if your very existence was a mild inconvenience, and critique it with the fervor of a prosecuting attorney presenting damning evidence. Kevin knew the signs. He'd seen them play out in countless YouTube cautionary tales and overheard the hushed whispers of former interns who'd passed through Viridian like ships in the night, leaving behind only faint traces of burnout and disillusionment. Today, however, the usual hum of the server room was overshadowed by a discordant note. Victor's voice, amplified by the office intercom, had a peculiar saccharine edge, a tone that usually preceded a departmental synergy session or a mandatory team-building exercise that involved trust falls and awkward icebreakers. Kevin, who was in the middle of debugging a particularly nasty memory leak, ignored it. His world was lines of code, algorithms, and the elegant dance of data. The corporate theater rarely impinged on his focus, unless it was directly threatening his presence in this digital theater. The intercom buzzed again, this time a sharper, more insistent tone. Kevin, report to my office, now, and bring that prototype you were working on. Prototype, that was the polite term. It was a passion project, a little side-channel communication tool Kevin had built in his spare time, just for fun, just to explore the possibilities of secure, peer-to-peer data transfer. He'd shown it to Victor once, a casual mention during a review, and Victor had, in his inimitable way, dismissed it as cute but non-essential to our core business objectives. Now, it was apparently essential enough to be summoned for. Kevin meticulously saved his work, logged out, and wiped down his workstation. He was an intern, yes, but he operated with the quiet professionalism of someone who understood that even the smallest digital footprint could be weaponized. He retrieved the small, unassuming USB drive containing his prototype and headed for the labyrinthine corridors of Viridian Dynamics. Victor's office was a monument to his own perceived importance. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic, albeit sterile, view of the city. The desk was a minimalist expanse of polished chrome and obsidian, devoid of personal touches, save for a single, framed photograph of Victor accepting an award for Most Innovative Leader of the Year from a publication Kevin had never heard of. Victor himself sat behind it, looking every bit the titan of industry, his expensive suit jacket impeccably tailored, his tie a precise knot of corporate navy. Beside him, looking decidedly less comfortable, sat Miss Albright from HR. Miss Albright was a woman who seemed perpetually on the verge of issuing a disciplinary memo, her expression a tight mask of professional neutrality that could curdle milk. "Kevin, have a seat," Victor said, gesturing with a manicured hand towards a sleek, uncomfortable-looking chair. "Thank you for coming in. We've been having a look at your contributions over the past few months." Kevin sat, his back straight, his gaze steady. He'd heard this preamble before. It was the opening act of the "We appreciate your hard work, but" symphony. "You've done adequate work, Kevin," Victor continued, the word adequate landing with the weight of a dropped anvil. "Solid, if unremarkable. You've demonstrated a certain aptitude for the grunt work." Kevin's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Grunt work. He'd been the one who'd optimized their cloud storage, rewritten their outdated authentication protocols, and single-handedly resolved a critical bug that had been plaguing their customer service portal for weeks. Grunt work felt like a particularly egregious underestimation. Miss Albright cleared her throat, her voice thin and reedy. "Kevin, as you know, your internship is nearing its conclusion. We've been very impressed with your persistence." She gave a small, tight smile. "Viridian Dynamics prides itself on identifying and nurturing talent. We believe in investing in our future leaders." "And that's why," Victor chimed in, leaning forward, his eyes glinting with what Kevin suspected was practiced sincerity. "We've prepared a unique opportunity for you, a chance to truly prove your commitment, to show us you have what it takes to go the distance." He slid a sheaf of papers across the desk. The header read, "Viridian Dynamics, Unpaid Training Program Agreement." Kevin's stomach did a slow, nauseating flip. Unpaid. Training. This wasn't just a curveball, it was a full-blown ambush. This program, Victor explained, his voice taking on the tone of a wise sage, imparting ancient wisdom, is an intensive 6-month immersion into the Viridian methodology. It's designed to hone your skills, deepen your understanding of our proprietary systems, and, frankly, test your dedication. It's a crucial step before we can even consider offering a full-time position. Miss Albright nodded sagely. Think of it as a final evaluation, Kevin, a chance to demonstrate your resilience and your passion for Viridian's mission. We call it the Crucible. The Crucible. Kevin's mind flashed to images of medieval torture chambers and ancient rites of passage. This was no crucible. It was indentured servitude disguised as professional development. The market for top tech talent is incredibly competitive, Victor continued, leaning back, the picture of magnanimity. We want to ensure we're bringing on individuals who are truly committed. Someone who's willing to put in the extra mile, to go above and beyond. This unpaid training period, while challenging, will be an invaluable differentiator on your resume. It's your opportunity to prove you're not just another intern, but a future leader. He paused, letting his words hang in the air like expensive perfume. Kevin felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He'd been promised a full-time position. They'd explicitly stated it at the beginning of his internship. Now, this? Now, of course, Victor added, his tone shifting ever so subtly. If you were to, shall we say, underperform during this crucible, it would unfortunately confirm our concerns about your readiness for a permanent role. We'd have to document that as well, naturally. It's all part of the process. Ensuring Viridian maintains its high standards. He smiled. It was the kind of smile that promised you a ticket to the moon, but only after you dug the launch pad with your bare hands. Kevin finally found his voice, though it sounded unnervingly calm, almost detached. So, if I understand correctly, he began, his gaze fixed on the unpaid training program agreement. I'm being asked to work for 6 months without pay, as a test of my commitment, after being promised a full-time position. And if I underperform, I'll be terminated for poor performance in this unpaid role? Victor chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. Well, when you put it that way, Kevin, it sounds a bit stark. But yes, essentially, it's a way for us to rigorously assess potential. To ensure a mutual fit, we're not just hiring anyone, you see, we're cultivating stars. Miss Albright chimed in, her voice like the rustle of dried leaves. Think of the experience, Kevin. This isn't just a job, it's an apprenticeship in excellence. Many of our most successful senior engineers started with a similar commitment. Kevin picked up the contract. The paper felt flimsy, almost disposable. Yet the implications were heavy enough to crush him. He scanned the dense legalistic language, his mind already racing. Unpaid labor, a probationary period disguised as an exploitative trap. This reeked of something far more sinister than a standard internship evaluation. It felt like predatory practices. He remembered Victor's dismissive remarks about his prototype, non-essential to our core business objectives. Yet, here they were, demanding 6 months of his time, unpaid, to hone his skills in their proprietary systems. What if his prototype was more essential than Victor let on? What if his understanding of secure data transfer, something he'd spent countless hours perfecting, was precisely what they were after, without the inconvenience of compensation or formal acknowledgement? I need some time to review this, Kevin said, his voice still remarkably steady. He kept his poker face firmly in place, a skill honed by years of navigating the subtle social dynamics of a corporate environment. Victor waved a dismissive hand. Of course, Kevin, take the rest of the day, but don't take too long. The sooner you can demonstrate your commitment, the sooner we can discuss your long-term future here at Viridian. He stood, signaling the end of the audience. We're expecting your signed agreement by end of day tomorrow. As Kevin walked out of Victor's opulent office, the sterile quiet of the office corridors seemed to amplify the sound of his own thumping heart. He clutched the contract tightly, the weight of it a tangible burden. He was an intern, a temporary fixture, easily replaceable. But he also knew, deep down, that he wasn't just another disposable cog. He had skills, he had knowledge. And for the first time since he'd walked through Viridian's gleaming glass doors, he felt a flicker of something other than ambition, suspicion. A cold, sharp suspicion that told him this crucible was less about forging a leader and more about forging a slave. He didn't go back to the server room. Instead, he made a detour to the University Career Services office. His old mentor, Dr. Evans, a woman whose sharp intellect was matched only by her fierce advocacy for her students, was his only hope. He'd heard whispers of her, the unofficial guardian of student rights in the cutthroat tech recruitment landscape. He needed an expert. He needed someone to dissect this contract, to tell him if his creeping dread was justified, or if he was just another wide-eyed intern overthinking a generous offer. He needed to know if Viridian Dynamics was offering him a golden ticket or a golden cage. And as he walked, the contract a heavy, folded secret in his pocket, he decided that if it was the latter, he'd find a way to break free, not with brute force, but with the quiet, Undeniable power of truth. He'd always been good with documentation after all. And this, he suspected, was about to become his most important document of all. The contract, a flimsy document meant to bind him to unpaid servitude, felt like a lead weight in Kevin's hand as he walked out of Victor's office. The polished corridors of Viridian Dynamics, once symbols of aspirational success, now felt like gilded cages. The cheerful corporate branding seemed to mock him, the slogans of innovation and integrity ringing hollow. But beneath the initial shock and anger, a cold, calculated resolve began to form. He wasn't a victim, he was a strategist. His first stop wasn't home, but the hushed, book-lined sanctuary of his university's career services, Dr. Evans, a woman whose sharp intellect and no-nonsense demeanor had guided countless students through the labyrinthine world of corporate recruitment, listened patiently. Kevin laid out the situation, the promised full-time role, Victor's bait-and-switch, and the crucible contract. Dr. Evans' usual mild smile tightened into a grim line. "This is not only unethical, Kevin, it's potentially illegal," she stated, her voice laced with indignation. An unpaid internship designed to function as full-time employment is a violation of labor laws in most jurisdictions, and using it as a performance review for a role you were already promised, that's egregious. She immediately connected him with the university's legal department. A quiet, unassuming lawyer named Miss Chen, whose specialization was employment law, meticulously dissected the contract. She noted the vague language, the lack of clear deliverables, and the thinly veiled threat of termination for underperformance in an unpaid capacity. Miss Chen assured Kevin that Viridian Dynamics was playing a dangerous game. Meanwhile, Kevin's mind was already whirring with possibilities. The prototype Victor had so dismissively requested, his secure peer-to-peer data transfer tool. He hadn't shown Victor the full capabilities, the encryption protocols he'd developed. He'd built it to be resilient, decentralized, virtually untraceable. What if its true purpose wasn't just personal exploration, but a safety net? He spent the next few days working remotely, not on Viridian's projects, but on his own. He meticulously archived every email from Victor and HR detailing the promised full-time role, every communication about his performance, every instance of Victor's condescending remarks. He compiled system logs, performance metrics, and even chat logs that subtly highlighted his contributions and Victor's dismissiveness. He didn't need to hack anything, he just needed to document the truth. He also began to build a discrete digital trail, creating a secure, encrypted repository for all this evidence. He knew direct confrontation with Victor and Albright was pointless. They operated in a world of plausible deniability and corporate doublespeak. He needed to leverage the very systems they used to control their workforce against them. The first domino fell on a Tuesday, 4 days after his meeting with Victor. Kevin had already informed his direct supervisor, a mid-level manager named Sarah, who was generally decent, that he'd be taking a personal leave of absence due to unforeseen circumstances, assuring her he'd be in touch. He'd made sure to do this through official channels, documenting his absence according to company policy, however reluctantly. A frantic email landed in Sarah's inbox from Victor. Urgent. Intern Kevin's absence impacting critical Q3 project rollout. The subject line was a masterpiece of corporate panic. Sarah, blindsided by Kevin's quiet departure and Victor's alarm, found herself scrambling. Kevin, as it turned out, had been the primary developer for a crucial component of the Q3 project, a data aggregation module that was notoriously complex. He'd been the only one who truly understood its intricacies, the one who had debugged it countless times when others had failed. Without him, the module was effectively a black box. Sarah relayed her concerns to her own manager, who then escalated it to Victor. The tone in the inner office communications shifted subtly. The dismissal of Kevin's contributions began to waver, replaced by a palpable anxiety. Old colleagues started texting Kevin, their messages a mixture of concern and bewildered gossip. "Hey man, you okay? Victor's losing his mind about the Q3 data thing. Said you were the only one who knew how it worked. What's up?" "Dude, heard you took off. Bosses are freaking out. Something about a project deadline. Everything all right?" Kevin responded to each with polite, brief messages, offering no explanation beyond a vague, personal matter. He saw the ripple effect, the growing unease within Viridian. They were used to interns being compliant, easily replaced, not disappearing with critical project components. Then came the real counterplay. Kevin didn't leak anything. He didn't create a scandal. Instead, he used the very system that was meant to trap him. He logged into the Viridian Dynamics employee portal, using credentials he still technically possessed as a former intern, albeit one on leave. He navigated to the HR section, found the company's official policy on internships and training programs, and then, with calculated precision, clicked the Contact Us button. His message was short, polite, and devastatingly effective. It was addressed to the Chief Compliance Officer, a person whose existence Kevin had only dimly been aware of, a figure typically shrouded in the bureaucratic fog of Viridian. Subject: Inquiry regarding unpaid internship program and employment agreements. Dear Chief Compliance Officer, I'm writing to seek clarification on Viridian Dynamics' current policies regarding internships and employment agreements. I was recently presented with an unpaid training program agreement for a 6-month period, intended as a prerequisite for a full-time role that had been previously discussed and implicitly promised. This agreement, referred to internally as the Crucible, appears to deviate significantly from standard internship practices and raises questions about compliance with labor laws concerning unpaid work and the conditions for employment. I'm particularly concerned about clauses that seem to equate an unpaid training period with a performance review for a promised position, and the implications for interns who may be unable to complete this unpaid term. To aid my understanding and ensure I am fully compliant with company policy and relevant regulations, I would appreciate clarification on the following: the legal basis for requiring unpaid work as a condition of employment consideration, especially when a full-time role has been previously discussed; the process for evaluating performance during such unpaid training periods and how this aligns with standard probationary employment periods; confirmation that Viridian Dynamics adheres to all federal and state labor laws regarding intern compensation and the classification of workers. I have attached the relevant sections of the Unpaid Training Program Agreement for your reference. Thank you for your time and attention to this important matter. I look forward to your prompt clarification. Sincerely, Kevin, last name. Former software intern. He didn't attach the entire contract, only the most damning clauses. He also made sure to CC the university's legal department representative, Miss Chin, on the email, a subtle but powerful indication that he wasn't acting alone and that external counsel was involved. Within hours, the response was not from the Chief Compliance Officer, but from the General Counsel's office. A terse, formal email landed in Kevin's inbox. Subject: Inquiry regarding unpaid internship program and employment agreements. Dear Mr. Last Name, this message is to acknowledge receipt of your inquiry dated date. Your concerns have been noted and are being reviewed by the appropriate internal departments. Due to the sensitive nature of this matter, we request that all further communication regarding this issue be directed to the legal department. Please refrain from contacting other departments or personnel regarding this. Sincerely, name of Senior Legal Counsel. Legal Department, Viridian Dynamics. The trap was sprung. By directly involving compliance and the legal department, Kevin had bypassed Victor and HR and forced the company's hand. They couldn't simply dismiss his concerns as an intern's misunderstanding. They had to investigate. The anxiety that had been a low hum within Viridian's corridors now escalated to a palpable dread. They knew Kevin was the source of the inquiry, and they knew he had ammunition. The question wasn't if they were in trouble, but how much. The silence from Viridian Dynamics was deafening, punctuated only by the frantic, hushed conversations Kevin overheard through his network of former colleagues. The company's internal messaging platforms were abuzz with speculation, whispers of a compliance investigation, a potential lawsuit, and the looming Q3 project deadline that was now in serious jeopardy. Victor and Miss Albright, accustomed to wielding their authority without question, were reportedly in a state of controlled panic. They'd underestimated Kevin, dismissed his potential, and now they were facing the consequences. Then the call came. It wasn't Victor's usual booming condescension, nor Miss Albright's clipped, bureaucratic tone. This was the Chief Executive Officer himself, Mr. Harrison. His voice, stripped of its usual boardroom authority, was tight with a carefully suppressed desperation. Kevin? Is this Kevin last name? Harrison's voice was strained. I'm calling about your recent inquiry to our legal department and the Q3 project. There seems to have been a misunderstanding. Kevin's heart pounded, but his voice remained steady, a deliberate contrast to the CEO's frayed nerves. He was at his small, uncluttered apartment, the hum of his own modest computer, a far cry from the cacophony of Viridian's corporate engine. Mr. Harrison, Kevin replied calmly, I'm not sure there was a misunderstanding. The unpaid training program agreement was presented to me as a prerequisite for a role I was assured I would be offered. When I sought clarification on its legality and fairness, I was met with resistance. And the Q3 project is indeed facing significant delays due to the absence of the primary developer. There was a heavy sigh on the other end. Look, Kevin, we value all our employees, and we certainly value your contributions. We're willing to rectify this situation. Victor and Miss Albright have been re-educated. Their approach was not aligned with our company values. They've been placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full review. Kevin let the silence hang for a beat. Victor and Albright sidelined. That was a good start, but it wasn't enough. They were just pawns in a larger game of corporate exploitation. That's good to hear, Mr. Harrison, Kevin said, his tone even. However, my concerns extend beyond just Victor and Miss Albright. The practice itself, the expectation that interns will work for free as a condition of employment, is systemic. It's exploitative, and frankly, it's a significant legal and ethical liability for Viridian Dynamics. He paused, letting his words settle. I've already provided the university's legal department with all relevant documentation. They've confirmed the agreement is highly problematic. Furthermore, I've compiled a comprehensive dossier of my contributions, including proprietary code and system architecture designs that I developed during my tenure. This dossier, along with the problematic agreement, has been securely shared with a number of interested parties, including labor rights organizations and prominent tech industry watchdogs. Kevin's secret weapon wasn't a hack, but something far more powerful: irrefutable documentation and the threat of public exposure. He hadn't needed to steal anything. He had meticulously recorded everything, creating a digital paper trail that directly implicated Viridian's leadership in unethical and potentially illegal practices. His blog, Young Man in Tech, which he'd launched shortly after the encounter with Victor, had begun to gain traction, detailing his experience with Viridian as a cautionary tale about predatory internship models. The story was resonating, and the impending Q3 deadline only amplified the urgency. Harrison's voice, now bordering on pleading, filled the line. Kevin, please, we need to resolve this. What can we do? What do you want? This was it, the endgame. Kevin laid out his terms, calmly, deliberately. I see two paths forward, Mr. Harrison. Option A, you immediately offer me a full-time, paid position as a senior software engineer with a starting salary significantly above market rate, a substantial signing bonus, and a formal commitment from the company to revise its internship program to ensure fair compensation and ethical treatment for all interns. Victor and Miss Albright must be terminated with cause. The unpaid training program agreement must be rescinded company-wide, and all employees currently subject to similar arrangements must be compensated retroactively. I will then provide a formal statement to the university's legal department, and my blog will reflect a positive resolution, highlighting Viridian's commitment to positive change. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Then he continued. Option B, if these terms are not met, or if there is any attempt at retribution, I will proceed with the full disclosure of my findings to all parties. This will include the evidence of your current internship practices, Victor's attempt to coerce me into unpaid labor, and the broader implications for Viridian Dynamics' reputation and legal standing. This will undoubtedly lead to regulatory investigations, significant financial penalties, and irreparable damage to the company's brand. It will also mean the immediate termination of my employment and a public campaign detailing your exploitative practices. He let the weight of his words settle. The silence on the other end was deafening, punctuated by Harrison's ragged breathing. He could almost picture the CEO's face, pale, sweat beading on his forehead, the polished facade cracking under the pressure. After a long, agonizing moment, Harrison spoke, his voice a shadow of its former authority. Option A, we choose. Option A, absolutely, everything you've outlined. We'll have a formal offer drafted and sent to you within the hour. Termination of Albright and Victor will be immediate. And we'll start reforming the internship program right away. I'll personally oversee it. The resolution was swift and decisive. Within 24 hours, a formal offer letter arrived, detailing a compensation package that far exceeded Kevin's wildest expectations. The signing bonus was indeed substantial, and the commitment to reforming the internship program was explicit. Victor and Albright were gone, their departure discreetly announced as a restructuring of departmental leadership. The unpaid training program agreement was officially rescinded, and internal memos were circulated throughout Viridian Dynamics, announcing a new era of fair internship practices, with a direct acknowledgement of the lessons learned from a recent, challenging situation. Kevin's blog post, instead of a scathing exposé, became a beacon of hope. He detailed his experience, not with anger, but with a measured tone that highlighted the positive outcome, framing Viridian Dynamics' response as a progressive step forward. He praised the swift action of the legal department and the CEO's commitment to change, subtly shifting the narrative from victimhood to successful advocacy. The impact on Viridian Dynamics was immediate. While some internal murmurs persisted, the public perception, bolstered by Kevin's carefully crafted narrative, was overwhelmingly positive. Investors, relieved to see the potential scandal averted and a commitment to ethical practices embraced, breathed a collective sigh of relief. The Q3 project, though delayed, was now being spearheaded by a motivated Kevin, armed with the resources and respect he deserved, and a team that was suddenly much more aware of the importance of fair labor. Kevin walked into his new, spacious office at Viridian Dynamics, not with a swagger, but with quiet confidence. The polished chrome and glass no longer felt like a cage, but a workspace. He'd faced down corporate arrogance and emerged not only unscathed, but empowered. He'd proven that talent, coupled with integrity and a meticulously documented truth, could indeed dismantle even the most entrenched systems of exploitation. The experience had fundamentally changed him. He wasn't just a coder anymore. He was a force for change, a testament to the fact that even the smallest voice, armed with the right strategy, could orchestrate a corporate reckoning. As he sat at his new desk, the hum of the servers, now a familiar, comforting sound, he knew this was just the beginning. His journey had just begun, and he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with knowledge, conviction, and the quiet satisfaction of a battle well fought. If watching corporate hubris meet its match through calculated strategy and undeniable truth resonates with you, consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories of justice served. The greatest power isn't in the code you write, but in the truth you wield.